So I've been thinking, right? There's a lot of changes in like society and, just like there's just a lot of changes in the world. And sometimes I don't think that we take enough time to stop and just be present enough to feel what they're calling, I guess, a timeline shift. They say the timeline is shifting. And it is. The timeline is definitely shifting. And I think that many of us are having a tough time gripping with something that was of the old and walking into something new. I'll give an example for myself, right? Most recently, I've had probably since November, I've had these consistent bouts with myself on my validation, my value, what I'm willing to accept, how I'm willing to accept it, what I'm willing to go for, and like just living in that and like trying to channel my mental into just that and stripping away like so much excess that I developed over years that I believe that was a part of my identity, whether that be taking on extra work to prove that I can do it, whether that be, over explaining myself where I feel like that will preserve a friendship or a relationship, whether that be, not getting the proper rest because I feel like, a man that, don't work, can't sleep and can't eat, just finding ways to like, diminish my own value as a human. And I want all the fellas to listen to what I'm saying. What's important about that is the older you get, you start to understand that the war that is truly waged isn't waged on the exterior, it's all in the mind. So how you see things, how you feel things, how you experience things will, and how you regulate your emotions is going to carry you more further in life than any other personal situation. And unfortunately, some of us didn't have parents that had the space to give us space when we were in the developmental years to do it. So unfortunately, you either learn to evolve to get there, or you just stay stuck in that infantile stage. And a lot of men are actually stuck in their infantile stage. They was either raised by someone that was infantile themselves, so that was an example for them. And due to their connection, due to their admiration of that person, they kind of don't see them doing anything wrong, even though they may have came from a toxic situation. So everyone that they come across, they're using that barometer, to gauge who the value of the next person. Not understanding that we're all different, and in different stages of life, you need different things. Okay, and I hate that I cry a lot these days. I cry a lot, but I cry because I care. It's okay to say that. And when you know you're different and unique, and you care, you got a lot going on inside of you. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna take a lot for you to like make sense of the world while it changes around you. But you got to stay present. You got to stay grounded. You know what I'm saying? Every label has been placed on me. Abusive, man hating, or woman hating. Violent. Distant, cold, detached. Thinks too much of itself, highly of itself, doesn't know when to shut up. All these particular things, and I would internalize these things and make whoever said them the enemy, because when I compare to what grandma said about me, you know what I'm saying? Like grandma said I was this. You feel me? And grandma ain't here no more. Now who you are. And I'll tell you, for men, when you look in that mirror, I know a lot of you guys still see that little boy. You may not want to be honest about it, but you still see that little boy. You still see the boy that had the dreams of what he wanted to do coming out of this situation. But Omi and a sage told me, you got to let the little boy out the closet. And I've been doing that since then. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all, because it's like all of us want someone to guide our hand and to hold our hand through the process like grandma did. But there's a point in life where your decisions have to be your own and you have to grow internally. And there's a lot of men who thought that they did all the right things and made all the right moves, made all did they were qualified, like they were qualified to do so, but they didn't do so because they didn't get the job, or they didn't get, the relationship. And now, since they don't have that, they feel like they don't have a connection. I say that to say this, right? Well, for a lot of us, you know, you thought you did everything right. Then you discover there's more to learn. And if you're a man and it's necessary for you to learn, do whatever it takes to learn. Unlearn, relearn, learn. And in this modern times, it is unfortunate, but you're not marrying your grandma. You're not gonna find your grandma. Your grandma had her whole life, and she sometimes didn't do the things that she truly wanted to do because she had to shoulder you and all the family. And unfortunately, there's generations that saw grandma not live her fullest life, and they said that they would not do so themselves. And they have the fullest right to do so. So for us to come online every week, for us to come to our websites or platforms crying every week about the changes that we see outside and the opposite sex. It's a real weak man syndrome, and it shows that we haven't really done the work. And I'm not saying it's to pander to no women, because honestly, I don't live a women-centered life. I just don't. And I think that throws certain women off, because they're not, even though they're removing themselves from a male-centered life, they still haven't come to the terms that there are some men that have also elevated their mind to live a woman-less centered life. That there are men like myself who say, well, after you've gotten a certain quantity, even if it's not like triple digits or whatever, once you've had a certain number of interactions with the opposite sex, and you kind of see where you fit in the market, you do two things. You get yourself better, and then you just consistently reinvest into yourself to a point where you kind of don't see room for anyone else. And that's where I had to work on. That's my work, is like relinquishing some of that. But I do so because I don't want to pair with anyone and them feeling like, whenever they do get with me, they see the things that I'm wrestling with week to week, that I've been wrestling with my whole life, that it is now their duty, because that's what grandma went through. She did it because she loved to do it. And it's sad that that's not the case. It's either that or grandma lied and she didn't really love to do it, and she just did it because it was her duty. Either way, time is changing, and we need to make sure we're in a position that we can take on challenge within ourselves first, and to do the necessary needs that we need to done in the community, and release the expectations we have of others based on old diagrams and things like that. Another quick story time before I leave. I was supposed to get this job, right? I was supposed to get this job. I applied for the job, got an interview, got to the second round. I was getting applause from all of the internal people, saying that they were saving the best for last. Something in me was just telling me, just don't celebrate too quickly, though. That may have been trauma, but up to the last 10 minutes of the decision, I got people saying it's your job, Shem. Just all the things that will make you feel good and validated, right? But I get the calls, and the call was great. When he told me, he said, it really came down to really splitting hairs, and we decided to go with someone else for this position, and we thank you for really applying. It shows, like, your strength and your admiration, and we really want you to keep on doing the things that you're doing, and we want to put you, in a developable mode. I want to work with you more, develop you, and things like that. And I'm gonna be real with you, I was very gracious. Again, I might cry. This is what it is. And I don't cry because it's like I'm sad. I cry because it's years of disappointment. When you've dealt with years of disappointment, it's like one thing that you experience, if you feel all of the other things that you haven't processed that were disappointing. And I can only imagine if I was in a relationship and I came home and I would have to explain, when I already have a tough time expressing my emotions sometimes, and how tough that would be for a woman in my life, and how maybe in times past when I wasn't aware of these complications that I had, and how tough it was for whoever my partner was then to help me through whatever tough period or disappointing period I had at that moment. Even though I may have said I was okay, I learned, like, oh, this is the work that I have to do. This is the actual work that I have to do. Like, there's not a woman that can get you out of that loop, that pain loop of overextending, overworking, placing yourself out there, understanding what the rejection is, and then having to go back and start again. Like, I'm going back to the same job in the morning, doing as I was doing before with the same energy, but with disappointment. And the reality is that many of my ancestors had the same emotion. So it's nothing new. I'm just experiencing it now. And sadly, many of my ancestors in the previous, when they felt disappointment, it led to abuse. It led to narcissism. It led to things that weren't becoming of a leader and a man. So I started to sit with myself with the disappointment, saying, okay, you got the whole world saying that you qualify and that it's yours, and they see this greatness in you, but so it seems like you're good, but for some reason you're just not good enough. Like, what is it? And the reality is, it's not that I'm not good enough. It's that when you're too good, sometimes there's small details that you still gotta like be able to understand about life before you get to that next moment or whatever it is for the other side. If it's death for me on the other side, that's what it is. Like, that was a lesson. It wasn't my lesson in his life, probably wasn't to be, you know, it was to be real, to go through things and to be real about it. So instead of like waiting for someone to save you from this emotion, or reflecting it back and like, oh, the women don't do this for you, that's why. No, you're upset because you're disappointed about life. We all fighting for the same little dollar. You got people who are empowered or to get away with it. That's very disappointing. There's no punchline